In the quiet, isolated town of Black Ridge, a strange unease lingers in the air. Whispers spread about a tall, faceless figure seen lurking at the edge of the forest. The townsfolk have given it a name: Slenderman.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Slow Your Roll. I'm Alex and we're going to be talking about creepy cryptids all October long. If you guys checked out the last video about the Mothman, please let me know what you think, but we've got something even scarier for you today. We're going to be talking about a cryptid created right here on the internet, the Slenderman, a figure that has captivated the internet audiences for over a decade. We're going to be going over his origins, lore, appearance, and even a stat block for D&D and DC-20. And if any of that sounds fun to you guys, stick around because we even have a one-shot for you at the very end. But as I'm sure you know, let's make it scary. First, let's begin where it all started. In 2009, Eric Knudsen, also known as Victor Surge, introduced the Slenderman during a Photoshop competition on the Something's Awful forum. This competition challenged contestants to create paranormal images, and Knudsen's contribution was a series of black and white images featuring a tall, faceless figure lurking ominously in the background. What started as just a simple image quickly evolved as many more in the internet started adding stories, artwork, and even videos. Through forums, creepypastas, and a series of collaborative storytelling, he became a modern urban legend, a true testament to the collective imagination of those on the internet. So who is this terrifying presence? If you ever happen to find him, he's going to be unnaturally tall, between 8 and 12 feet high, with a very slender frame, almost skeleton-like. The most prominent feature being his featureless face, a completely blank face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just an unsettling presence. He wears a suit and tie, a really weird mimicry of human formality during a funeral. Whose funeral though? Yours? His arms are disproportionately long, almost reaching down past his knees. But he doesn't need those to grab you because he has several tentacles coming off of his back with which he can wrap you up in. The Slenderman is a relatively elusive type of cryptid, often going to be frequenting forests or abandoned buildings. He doesn't prefer to outright attack. He'd rather whittle away his victim's mental state more and more over time, hopefully manipulating his victims into doing his bidding. Like many a boogeyman before him, he targets the most vulnerable, children, or those who are mentally unwell. The Slenderman focuses on distorting reality for his victims, causing hallucinations and even confusion. After prolonged exposure to this repeated manipulation, some people might call it slender sickness, characterized by paranoia, memory loss, nightmares, and even physical symptoms like nausea and nosebleeds. Ultimately though, once you've got slender sickness, it might be too late. Because Slenderman's not just out here to kill and kidnap your children. He's here to make them a proxy. Or maybe some better words to use for our type of gameplay, a thrall. After someone has been inflicted with slender sickness, they begin to lose a sense of self, eventually becoming obedient to the Slenderman, carrying out his bidding without question, no matter how heinous it might be. But internet forums aren't the only place you'll find the Slenderman. His arms are long, so is his reach. You can find him, even though you might not like to, in the video games Slender, the 8 Pages, and Slender, the Arrival. In these video games, you gather the 8 pages while avoiding the Slenderman at all costs. And if there's some more information that you might want on the Slenderman, please do check out The Marble Hornets. It's a YouTube web series that significantly popularized the Slenderman. It follows a filmmaker haunted by the Operator, a proxy for the Slenderman. There's also a few films or documentaries that you might want to check out, like Slenderman, a terrifying film all about your favorite creepy cryptid. And there's also Beware the Slenderman, a 2016 HBO documentary detailing the cultural impact and real-life implications of the Slenderman. But since I just brought it up, there were a few incidences that involved murder or severe harm of specific individuals, and those specific individuals also blamed this on Slenderman or being a Slenderman proxy. This is not real, it cannot hurt you, and it never will. Things like this are only for fun and enjoyment during the spooky time. Bringing the discussion right back to the Slenderman, what if I told you that he's been around for so much longer than just a decade? I'd be remiss not to mention that he is very similar to other child-snatching figures in folklore, like the Pied Piper or the Urkling. The Slenderman embodies the real-life fear of children or the vulnerable being lured away by malevolent means. Referenced in the web series, the operator symbol, a circle with an X through it, usually marks the presence of the Slenderman. This could be great, almost like a sigil or summoning rune for the Slenderman, and the more and more you find it, the closer you are to danger. And if I hadn't said it enough, this is a massive testament to the collaborative storytelling efforts of everyone in what they would call the Slenderverse. And you can also find yourself within the Slenderverse as well, with likely a quick trip to Reddit. And of course, like I mentioned before, we do have a D&D and DC-20 stat block, hopefully up on the screen for you guys over here. But let's just give a quick overview. He's got some sick abilities, things like teleportation and invisibility. Different mind control spells, he's gotta create his thralls somehow, and his ever foreboding presence that could instill fear in anyone who looks upon his face. Fighting the Slenderman one-on-one or a direct confrontation with him is unlikely unless it's the final fight. He loves mental manipulation and psychological abuse, so if you can, use that to your advantage. Maybe even ask your characters if their characters have a specific fear that you can exploit for this spooky story you're making. Hopefully you all enjoy those stat blocks, and stick around for one more thing because we still have an amazing one-shot to take to your table.
That is right. Thank you, Alex, for the setup. Hello, everybody. I am Cody, the other half of Slow Your Roll, and I will be tackling exactly what the one-shot will be covering, which, by the way, you can find the link for in the description below. And it is free, nothing crazy. You just click the link, brings you to a drive folder and all that stuff, and then you have the thing that we made. So anyway, so you already heard the little narrative hook at the beginning, but a general overview for this one-shot actually. This one-shot adventure places the players in the eerie town of Blackridge, where a string of mysterious disappearances has left the residents terrified. The children of the town have vanished without a trace, with only faint glimpses of a tall, shadowy figure near the forest edge. The players are brought in to investigate, unraveling the unsettling truth behind the Slenderman. As they delve into the mystery, they must navigate a series of psychological challenges and confront an ancient force that thrives on isolation and fear. Their choices will determine whether they save the missing children or fall victim to the creeping terror themselves. And that is exactly right. This one is split up similar to the way that the Mothman was split up, if you guys check that one out. It's really the same concept of learn about the monster, try to understand the monster, and then kind of hunt the monster, technically. So it's the same setup with 3 acts yet again. In Act 1, you can expect to set the scene. You'll be introducing key NPCs that each have their own plot hooks to kind of drive the players forward into the plot. Agnes Caldwell, an old, wise woman knowing a bunch of this town's lore. Ronan Hale, a grieving father of one of the missing children. And of course, the sheriff, Douglas Marsh. He's a very practical, no-nonsense sheriff that can give you more details and try to guide you in the right direction. At this point, we might be touching on some spoilers, so if you intend to play this one-shot instead of actually running it, then you might want to kind of skip this part. But when the investigation starts, the players will actually start to go into some of the homes of the children that have been kidnapped. And when they do, they could actually find some unsettling clues, like drawings of Slenderman, of course, cryptic notes, things you might actually see in other media sources of Slenderman, like the game Slender and, whatever. But several checks may allow the players to gain some very specific information that they'll find out later, even in this part. Further investigation will definitely unveil some of the town's history, and there might even be a local library where Agnes, the previous NPC introduced, has a bunch of books that might offer insight into a very specific piece that comes into play later. And then eventually the players might even investigate the forest itself, and survival checks and many other things may unveil some rather specific information to help track down and figure out the Slenderman's whole situation. Act 2, of course, one way or another, is the action phase, where players will be going into the forest or whatever else you flavor this part as. But of course, we've got some encounters set up there, challenges that they'll find, all sorts of spooky things to confuse your players or mislead them, or maybe even lead them directly to the issue too easily, only to find them facing down with the Slenderman or his minions early on. And then you've got Act 3, where pretty much no matter what, the players come into direct contact with Slenderman, and man, is he a ridiculously difficult monster to beat. The numbers are right and decently balanced, don't get us wrong, but there are a lot of interesting combat mechanics that are on the character sheet for Slenderman that Alex cooked up for you guys, so enjoy that. And of course, the final fight, or whatever it would end up being, is a way to give your players even more choices, where they can do a specific thing to maybe stop Slenderman, or they can take a head-on approach and directly stop Slenderman. And regardless, however that turns out, will determine exactly how they succeed or fail. But when everything is wrapped up, after the players either defeat the Slenderman or seal him away, the silent glen of the forest falls quiet once again. The oppressive weight lifts and the players find themselves standing in the clearing, with some other minor details wrapped up too that I don't want to completely spoil. But the worst part is you're able to leave your players with this really just awful and unsettling, lingering concept that the thing that brought the Slenderman here in the first place can never actually go away. So that's also kind of terrifying. But anyway, again, all of this will be in the link in the description below, as well as some of the other things that Alex referenced in the video. So feel free to check that out. And if you have any feedback for us, please let us know. And enjoy. If you run this thing and you like it, let us know. We appreciate it. But anyway, go out there, get spooky, show your table just how spooky Slenderman can be. Thanks, guys.